Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. I'm very well aware that I'm not very good at this. I'm not a very good content creator. I'm very well aware that my videos are shit, that they're shite, that they're not professional, that they're not rehearsed, they're not written, they're not scripted. I don't have an earpiece in my ear telling me what to say. My videos are improvised. The only rehearsals I do is in my head as I'm having breakfast before I actually do the videos. I am not a deluded man. I understand my limitations. So Mick, why do you do this if you know your videos are bad? I do know my videos are bad. I know the quality of my camera isn't very good. I don't have editing software. I am not professional in any way. I do it because I love it. It gives me a buzz. I enjoy it. And maybe once or twice or thrice a year, people will approach me and say, Mick, I love your videos. They make a difference in my life. I just like how real you are. That's not me trying to be real. This is just me. I haven't created a caricature like a lot of professional content creators have done. This is me. This is who I am. So when someone once in a blue moon says, Mick, I love your videos. They make a difference in my life. They distract me from my problems. Thank you. That means more to me than having 1 million subscribers. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not saying that as a bitterness because I'm not successful. How could I be? My content isn't any good. So I just want you all to know that I appreciate the few of you who watch and the 2 or 3 or 5, however many of you like the videos and come in faithfully every day. I understand my limitations. I understand I'm not a successful content creator. I have no arrogance about doing these videos. I don't think I'm any better than anyone who doesn't make videos. I have an opinion and I want to air it. So I thought I'd just get that out there. So today I want to talk about the dceu. Should it have happened? Should the people who ran it in the first place? Could it have been saved? Could different decisions have been made? And should Zaslav have continued with the dceu? So I think if you notice with Man of Steel, it has Christopher Nolan's production company banner at the beginning of the film. If you noticed on Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, his production company is nowhere to be seen. He's credited as an executive producer. But that doesn't really mean much. It's because he helped set up the dceu. That's why his name is on Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. And we've spoken about David Goyer having a writer's credit on BVS. His script was meant to be a Man of Steel sequel, and then Chris Terrio came in and rewrote what he did. I think the biggest mistake was, the removal of Nolan and Goyer. I think if Nolan and Goyer stayed after Man of Steel, I genuinely believe that the dceu would have been a success. I've always said that to you guys, and I'll reiterate that opinion. Their removal was really the beginning of the end. If you watch Man of Steel and you see the way Snyder directed it, I think he was a great choice. He's a controversial choice. Some people don't like him. Some people love his, directorial style. But I think in terms of him being Christopher Nolan's and David Goyer's director, it was great. It's a bit like, Greg Beeman being Alfred Gough and Miles Miller's director on Smallville. Great director. He really did create the look of Smallville in a lot of ways. So, Snyder as their director was fine. But Snyder went from being a director to running the dceu. And this is where really the mistake was made. From that moment on, the dceu was living on borrowed time. You know I love Zack Snyder as a director and a person. I love all three of his DCEU movies. So Mick, why are you saying it was a bad idea for him running the DCEU after Goyer and Nolan left? Well, it's a bit like having an army. And basically the general retires and he goes to Snyder, right, here's the grenade, don't pull the pin. And Snyder pulls the pin anyway. That's the kind of person that Snyder is. He wants to take his shot. He wants to make his movie. He's not about the money. He's not about the business. He's about his vision. Now that's a good thing. His vision isn't for everyone. But with Goyer and Nolan, especially Nolan there would have been, if Snyder was going to do something that Nolan felt, well, Zach, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should. Don't pull the pin out of the grenade, mate, just yet. But I think Nolan and Goyer wrote a great Man of Steel script. Goyer had a great vision for Man of Steel. And Snyder directed the hell out of the movie. It worked. And there's only two things that audiences really didn't like. Some audiences didn't like the over-destruction and the collateral damage. And also, Superman killing Zod at the end of the movie was highly controversial. That wasn't on Snyder, that was on Goyer, by the way. But there's nothing that happened in Man of Steel that couldn't have been fixed, for the general audience in a Man of Steel sequel. It's like what I always say about kind of the originally greenlit Superman Returns sequel. Bryan Singer, he shouldn't be named, by the way, had every intention of fixing the issues people had with Superman Returns, which was not enough action. But you don't let someone fix those mistakes by giving them that sequel, because there were a lot of good things about Superman Returns and so many great things about Man of Steel. Why would you say to the prolific director Christopher Nolan, go away? Or, why did Nolan go away, by the way? Why did Goyer go away? Why wasn't Goyer and Nolan involved anymore? Well, it's obvious to me that they didn't want Goyer anymore. So they went to Zack Snyder, it's all yours now, baby. Which is interesting, considering the relationship WB ended up having with Zack Snyder. That was the biggest mistake. Because if Goyer and Nolan had written a Man of Steel sequel and Snyder had directed it, I think slowly but surely the DCEU would have been a really successful franchise. And they continued slowly but surely with their plans. And the studio executives stayed in their offices and let Nolan and Goyer do their thing. I think we would have had an amazing franchise. Personally, I love BVS. I love Man of Steel. I love the Snyder Cut, right? As I keep on saying. Because I'm just being balanced here. And we can be balanced and critical about people that we look up to. There's nothing wrong with that. What we don't want to be is be shills. Look at some of these James Gunn fans. They won't hear a word of criticism against the man. I like his stuff, but it's okay to criticize James. It doesn't mean I'm a James Gunn hater. This is a platform of balance, despite me being a shit content creator and making shit videos, right? I still have a right to have my opinion on people as long as it's constructive. So I think when we're asking the question, should the DCEU start? Should the people who were put to run it have ran it? Look, by having Nolan and his production banner involved with the DCEU from the beginning, you create a different type of IP and franchise. It's one of a visionary. It's one of a filmmaker. And, there's no question about that. Him going, for whatever reason it was, and Goyer going, was the beginning of the end for the DCEU. So Snyder basically does whatever he wants with Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. It's totally unrelatable to the mainstream audience, although it does make $850 million at the global box office. There's a reason why it had a record-breaking opening. Because WB's marketing fooled the audience into thinking it was something it wasn't. That's why people went to see it. The reason it had the record-breaking opening is the same reason that the recent, Godzilla and Kong movie had a really strong opening. Two iconic characters, right? It's about, Godzilla and King Kong are iconic characters. And, Superman and Batman are two iconic characters. Throwing fists. That's never not going to make people want to go to the cinema. That's one of the major reasons. That movie had a huge opening and slowly stumbled to 850 million global box office. And that's why they did it. That's why they wanted Batman and Superman in the same movie, to kind of drag people to the movie theatre. And it kind of worked on opening weekend. It was a huge opening weekend. But reviews were very, very bad. Critics didn't like the film, and a lot of hardcore fans didn't like the film. And many members of the mainstream audience didn't like the film. We can't rewrite history. We can't change that. But I believe that Goyer and Nolan's Man of Steel sequel would have garnered a different reaction, and we would have had a very different DCEU. And I think that's where the first mistake was. Goyer and Nolan leaving the property. That was a very, very big mistake. And then you've got a situation after Batman versus Superman where you have a very, very divisive reaction. And, what's ironic about this whole thing, I think I mentioned this yesterday when we were speaking about Justice League, the studio loved Batman versus Superman, especially Ben Affleck's version of Batman. They loved him so much, they signed him up to write and direct his own Batman trilogy, right? They love Ben Affleck as Batman. The studio, WB have always loved Ben Affleck, by the way. But it was a great reaction. The film got a standing ovation from the studio, which doesn't always happen, by the way. Studio executives are very critical and want you to go back to changing your movie constantly. So they liked the movie, as I did. What they didn't like was the reaction from critics and the public. It was very divisive. Suicide Squad, released in the same year, didn't get a good reaction from anyone, but people went to see it, probably because of Harley and the Joker. Because for the first time in live action, we had a Harley and Joker, which was a huge thing. People didn't really like Jared Leto's Joker, because most of the good stuff was on the cutting room floor, because they interfered with that movie as well. As we know, they cut half an hour from BVS, and they had to put that back together to create the Ultimate Edition, and that kind of got a few more people to movie theatres when they had a limited R-rated Ultimate Edition. That's the better version of the movie, as we all know. That's not even debatable. So then, Zack's making Justice League, and they bring in, Joss Whedon in. I think this is the next reason why the DCEU ultimately failed in the end. You've got to make a decision. You can't recycle Zack's Justice League. You've got to either say, carry on, Zack, or Zack, sorry, we're shelving your movie. It's not going to happen. We have creative differences, because creative differences happen all the time. Lord and Miller's Solo is on a shelf somewhere as well, right? We'll never see it. It's incomplete, right? This, if you don't believe in Zack, if the divisive reaction to the movie, upsets you so much, you've got to say, thanks, Zack, but no thanks. If you bring Joss Whedon, you shelve that Justice League movie. Whedon wanted to make a Batgirl movie. So you shelve it. You either make Batgirl part of the DCEU or you just start again. But, you could have literally, after BVS, kind of had Joss Whedon's Batgirl. Now, that means the public don't really know what an arsehole Joss is. You don't get all the problems with Justice League, because that never happens. You just shelve that movie and you don't do it. And, Joss Whedon makes his Batgirl movie, either as a first movie in a brand new franchise or a continuation of the DCEU. Now, personally, the sensible decision would have been just to say, right, the DCEU doesn't work, and start again. I think at that point, that would have been a sensible decision. Because what do you do? I mean, Ultimately, if you wanted to make Joss Whedon's Batgirl movie part of the DCEU, you could have done. And they could have still allowed Ben Affleck, I suppose, to make his Batman movies. But it's a bit of a problem because he's not going to have the freedom he would have had if Batman vs Superman was the beloved movie they hoped it would become. So I think even at that point, it would have probably been a good idea to kind of end the DCEU. But they didn't. So they drive Snyder out. Justice League is a disaster. What do they do next? Well, you've got Jeff Johns basically in charge. It doesn't work. We get a really good Wonder Woman movie because of Zack Snyder's involvement, but he's gone by then. By the release of Wonder Woman, he's gone. We don't know he's gone, but he's gone, right? So Snyder is gone. And then it doesn't work out with Jeff Johns. So Walter Hamada comes in. Now, this is the moment when things really, really went tits up. Because they've had so many, or, you know, a high-profile disaster, financial disaster, in Justice League, they decided to make cheap films. So that's why Hamada was brought in. Because Hamada can make films on budget. Unfortunately, his Shazam was okay. And obviously, Aquaman made a lot of money. But that first Aquaman had very little to do with Walter Hamada, even though his name is on that movie. And it is, go and check it. You don't have to take my word for it, right? More low-key movies, you know, woke movies like Birds of Prey. That is a really extremist anti-male movie, as we all know. But these are all cheap, underwhelming movies. That really killed the DCEU. Because not only did the DCEU start as a franchise that some didn't like, now it became something worse. It became something that people didn't care about under Walter Hamada. There was no real plan. Then all of a sudden he had this plan to reboot the DCEU in the guise of the Flash movie. They were going to replace Superman with Supergirl. And a dumb idea, you want Supergirl and Superman standing together. A dumb idea, but that was the plan. Ultimately, Hamada had gone because Zaslav had come in. So the question now is, should Zaslav save the DCEU or just start again? How he's done now. Well, his mind was made up after the movie he inherited, Black Adam, was a disaster. Once he saw that that movie was a financial disaster, that it cost so much money, that there was no future in it, and James Gunn had already been brought in by Hamada and Emmerich, and they'd already tapped him to write a Superman script before he became co-CEO of the brand new DC Studios. Zaslav read the script for his Superman movie and said, you know what? Why don't you just run it? Why don't you just run DC Films? He liked the script so much, he said, you may as well run it with Peter Safran. That wasn't his first choice, by the way. Todd Phillips was his first choice to run DC Studios. But Todd wisely said no. You know, Todd doesn't want all that fucking hassle, does he? So the question now is, was he right to end the DCEU? Was David Zaslav right to end the franchise? I love what Snyder did. I would like to tell you that he was wrong to be reactive after Black Adam. But let's look at David Zaslav's recent record. Despite shelving Batgirl and, you know, shelving that Looney Tunes movie that James Gunn was producing and people being up in arms about it, right? He nearly kind of shut down TCM, you know, the Turner Classic Movie Channel, which is an institution in Hollywood. Now, clearly, Zaslav saw that channel. No one's really watching it. The ratings are probably not there. So he wanted to make a business decision. Warner Brothers are in debt. This fixer, this troubleshooter has come in to save the studio. And he's trying to make sensible decisions. He's saying, look, this Batgirl movie can't be released in theatres. We're going to waste our time and money on marketing it for HBO Max. At least if we get at least if we do one tax write-off a year, we make some money. The man is trying to balance the books. So the man is doing his job. He's making sensible unpopular decisions. But that's what happens when your company is in trouble. Let's be balanced about this. But his recent record is amazing. You know, last year Barbie, last year Wonka, right? And this year, in April, Warner Brothers have already got a box office of $1 billion. $1 billion already. June has made over the June sequel has made over $600 million. And the Godzilla King Kong X New Empire, whatever it's called, basically those two films have given Warner Brothers an already $1 billion box office haul this year. So last year they did well, this year they're doing well. Of course, Disney with Deadpool and Wolverine, you'd expect that movie to bring in well over $1 billion. That movie you would expect to make Spider-Man No Way Home money. But it's very unpredictable, and I'm not so sure that movie's as good as everybody thinks it's going to be. Happy to take the L, but I do see a lot of red flags with that movie, but we shall see. And Taylor Swift apparently being in that movie doesn't excite me because I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. I appreciate her music, but I just don't think Taylor is a very nice person. Again, that's just my opinion. So, you know, you look at Zaslav's recent record in the box office. He's making the right decisions. Their share prices are falling all the time, but they're starting to bring in the money. Look, they're still heavily in debt. You know, I'm not going to spin this narrative, right? I'm a WB fan, but I'm not a WB shill. I want WB. I don't want WB to be sold. I hope the rumours are not true, that he's going to merge with another company or sell to somebody else, right? I don't want that to happen. I want WB to stay an independent studio, right? But they're starting to make money. Zaslav, whether you like it or not, is turning things around. And if he was to have a successful Superman film next year, then really he's been successful, because that means his plan to end the DCEU and go with James Gunn's brand new universe has worked. But nobody knows at this point if that is going to work or not. I would say I'm quietly, optimistic, but I still have some reservations. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see about that, right? But Zaslav his plan is slowly but surely working. Because he's a clever guy. Zaslav has been successful all his career. He made Discovery a success. So Zaslav isn't an untalented man. The issue with Zaslav, he has no experience in scripted entertainment, but he did ask a lot of advice from a lot of experienced people in Hollywood. And to be fair to him, when Steven Spielberg said to him, please don't close down TCM, he backed off, right? He spoke to them. So he's clearly not a dictator, but in terms of, shutting the Turner Classic movie station down, that was going to be a business decision because it's not making money and people are not watching it. Enough people are not watching it. Whether you like to hear that or not, that's the truth. And I believe in movies. I love old movies. I prefer old Hollywood to new Hollywood. 1930s Hollywood, the more I'm researching it, wow, I just want to be there. I want to experience it. Must have been an amazing time. So, did he make the right decision in ending the DCEU? In terms of a business decision, he made the right decision. Yeah, after Black Adam didn't make money, right? He could see what was going to happen, right? He knew that the other movies that were going to be released the following year, the 4 DCEU movies that flopped last year, right? Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the Flash movie, Blue Beetle, Aquaman and Lost Kingdom, all flopped. So, he saw the future. He saw there was no future, that you couldn't fix the DCEU. It had a bad reputation because people weren't even bothering to watch those movies. Now, some of us have said, well, is that because James Gunn started promoting his IP for a brand new franchise? Maybe, maybe not. But people were getting excited about what James Gunn was teasing. Whether that was the right decision or the wrong decision. Could the DCEU be saved at that point. When you think about all the damage that had been done, how Zack Snyder's DCEU divided audiences as much as I personally love those films. How Johnson Berg, failed as well and created all those problems. And then Hamada, who came in to be, a fixer-upper on budget, cheap budget DC movies. Underwhelming DC movies that didn't do well either. But luckily for them, Hamada worked on budget, so they didn't spend a lot of money. But someone at WB decided to bring in Todd Phillips, because Todd Phillips had a pitch to make, black label villain movies. And the first Joker made over $1 billion. Now, Hamada didn't like that idea. He fell out with Todd Phillips, but someone at the studio, maybe Emmerich, I don't really want to give Toby Emmerich that much credit, but it's clear someone at the studio believed in what Todd Phillips was doing. So someone who was running the studio, back in the, older days of WB, when Todd Phillips made 3 hangover movies, clearly knew how talented Todd Phillips is. And I think it's going to be another win for Zaslav this year with Joker 2. I think, in fact, did he greenlight that sequel? Well, that sequel was always going to be greenlit anyway, but they announced it. Didn't they announce it last year, the year before? Whatever it was. Anyway, he'll kind of get credit for that. And considering he wanted Todd Phillips to run DC Studios, he clearly believes in the writer-director. And, you'd have to be a fucking idiot. Right, even if you don't understand the industry, all you have to do is watch Joker and think, and the Hangover trilogy, and say, this guy knows exactly what he's doing, right? No wonder Zaslav wanted him to run DC. What's amazing about Todd Phillips is he knows nothing about DC, nothing about the Joker, did a bit of research, and actually gets the Joker in that first Joker movie. It's not, deadpan, comic book Joker, but there's elements of the character that have always been in the character that are there. He just gives the character an understandable, relatable backstory. Now, most people, Joker fans have always said, we don't want an origin story for the Joker. We don't want to know who he was. But it worked, and people accepted it. It's a great movie. It made a lot of money. I expect Joker Folly to do, and I don't say that properly. Nobody does, by the way. It's okay. Don't get it twisted. But I expect that movie to make a lot of money. And I can't believe that people were losing their shit because it was a musical. Musicals are great. Get over it. Musicals are fun. This is going to be a fun, great movie. So if this was a trial and I came back in as a judge, was it right for Zaslav to end the DCEU? Yes, absolutely. In terms of a business decision, and that's what it was, it's not a personal thing, it didn't work. The reputation was toast. And I know we all got excited when Henry Cavill was in that post-credit scene of Black Adam, and we were getting excited about him returning as Superman. Zaslav puts Gunn in charge, and Gunn says, listen, I want my own Superman. I'm making a Superman movie. At the very least, I want to cast my own Superman. I don't think he's wrong to do that. Of course, I was disappointed and not happy with the way Henry Cavill was messed about. Even Gunn admitted that Cavill had been messed about, and he had a good conversation with him. Whether that was genuine or not, I don't know. But that's what he said. Gunn has a good relationship with people that he works with. So, despite what people say about him in the rumours and some of the not so nice things said about him, I've never heard anyone who's ever worked with him before say anything bad about him. Now, he's accused of nicking the idea of Guardians of the Galaxy as a movie from somebody else. Again, I don't know much about that. All I can tell you is people who work with Gunn like Gunn. And he's made 3 really good Guardians movies, right? We're going to have to take his word for it that it's all his idea and he didn't steal anybody's ideas, right? Although that happens a lot in this game, by the way. But then he made Suicide Squad. Again, I really like that. And I think Peacemaker is his best piece of work. I don't think he's the best director ever, but I think he's very good with this material. I don't know what he's going to do with Superman. At this point, we knew what Superman Returns was going to be. And we knew what Man of Steel was going to be. pretty much we knew way before we saw the movie what direction both those movies were going to take. But Gunn has been very, very secretive about this movie. I suppose at the end of the day, today we could not really clarify if Zaslav made the right decision. But in July of next year, we will finally know, when James Gunn's Superman movie is released, whether Zaslav made the right or wrong decision to end the DCEU.